Okay, well, welcome everybody to the Public Health and Safety meeting. I'll call the meeting to order. First thing is I'd like to approve the minutes of the February 25th meeting. Any comments? I always look to you, Gary.
Well, Seth looks to me too, and I don't know why. I compliment her again. She does an excellent job. She really does. It's just very concise, and certainly if someone read this, they knew exactly what we did that meeting. Mm-hmm. And I commend her for that. I have no
Jennifer does a nice job.
No criticism at all, only praise.
And there'll be no criticism tonight from Laura, because Laura's taking notes tonight.
And there will be no criticism.
Yes.
Now that we understand one another.
Don't forget, Laura, we've been down this path before.
Not even constructive. So, all in favor of approving the minutes? Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so...
And can I just...
Sure.
I don't know who you are.
Hi, I'm Scott.
Scott
Zimmerman. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
maybe we should just go around.
Yeah, let's
How I
sure.
it was
We've
the
got,
last meeting that I missed.
yeah,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
Okay.
Why don't we have two guests here. Monica? Yep.
Hi.
Yeah.
I'm Monica McNally. I'm chair of the Public Works Committee. I'm in District 2, and I'm happy to be here tonight to answer any questions that you have.
And Frank?
Frank Kemp, District 4, chairman of the Town Government Structure and Administration Committee, otherwise known as TGSNA. And so TGSNA has been working with you all and Public Works to get a draft of what we're talking about tonight.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. And
I'm Laura Mosier. I am the note taker this evening
District 5.
of District 5.
Okay.
Nina Miller, District 2. Thank you, Scott. Sorry, I didn't intend to.
Okay.
I was
I can handle
missed the
that.
last meeting.
Alice Hauser, District 4. Holly Giordano, District 3.
Brian Rahal, District 4. I apologize, I have an assessment meeting in a little while, so I'm going to have to depart early.
I'm still Scott Zimmerman. District 3. Colin Kelly, District 1.
Gary Swenson, District 6.
Lois Schneider, District 1.
And I'm Mac Patrick, District 5. So that's good. I'm glad we do that. It's good to just so everybody knows everybody. Sounds good. Thanks, Nina.
Thank you.
So what we have tonight, I handed out. Does everyone have one? This is draft 2.4. I think Brian needs one. Pass it down to Brian. And Monica, if you just want to tee it up and just explain what this draft is and what's different about it.
Okay. This draft has one small, but I think it's a significant change. We went out and talked to the small stores, right? And number-wise, obviously there are many more small stores in Darien than there are the larger stores, and that's, I think, more of what we consider the audience for this ordinance. As in, they use a lot more bags per day. So what we tried to do is figure out a way to mitigate the ordinance's impact for the smaller stores. And what we came up with was allowing the smaller stores, in this case they're defined as a store that's under 10,000 square feet, to have a break. So as the ordinance, as you read it before, it gets a little complicated, but I'll break it down. So between now and if it's passed, it doesn't matter when it's passed, the start date is January 1st. So between now and January 1st, everybody, big stores and small stores, will use up their current supplies of bags, both plastic and paper. On January 1st, no store will be able to use the single-use plastic bag. You know what that is, right? The smaller one. Those are actually like a 0.5 mil. That's how thin they are. And the larger stores will be required to offer you a paper bag, which will be made out of recyclable material. That's 40% post-consumer recyclable material and is recyclable in itself. Okay, so those are the options. So you go into the store, you either bring your own bag. That's the goal, right? But if you don't bring your own bag, you will buy a bag from the store for 10 cents per paper bag. Or you could buy, when you go into the store, you see those reusable bags, we're going to call them. They're the thicker bags, they usually cost like $1 or something like that, or you could buy one of those. Those bags need to be 12 mil in thickness. So so between now and January 1st, everybody uses up their supply. After that, the smaller stores get an additional year to use up their supply, both plastic and paper, whatever they have. Obviously, they're not going to go out and buy more non-compliant bags because they're business people and that would be a bad idea. But we're giving them an additional year. The only thing different in this ordinance that you're looking at now is that from the get-go, the smaller stores will not be required to charge you 10 cents for a bag when you shop there. They don't need to, the larger stores will need to charge you after January 1st, the 10 cents for a paper bag, and they'll need to have a sign. They'll need to either have a sign or tell you, obviously they'll put a sign up, and they'll need to mark it on their receipt, so they'll have to trick out their cash registers so they can do that. So this new ordinance, D, under exemptions, carves out the space for the smaller stores not to have to charge you the 10 cents from the beginning for any bag. Does that make sense? Any questions?
And do they have to put it on receipts? Well, they're not
No,
charging you.
they're not charging, yeah, so, because you know what, we went out and we talked to stores, and the smaller stores weren't entirely aware of the full ramifications of this. Everybody thought, bag ban, it sounds great, no more plastic bags. Who can't get behind that? But it turns out that it's a little more complicated, and we were...
Devil in the details.
Yeah, it was devil in the details, and as we got to learn more, we realized that different places do different things. There are 25 states, including Connecticut, that have some sort of an ordinance, and 15 of the states charge you something. It's anywhere from 5 cents to 25 cents. Sometimes the money goes to an environmental fund, sometimes it goes to the store, sometimes they try to carve out a little bit for the state. So there are all different ways of doing this, but what we are going to do is the store that charges the 10 cents, the larger stores, that's the Stop and Shop, that's the Palmer's, that's the Walgreens, that's the CVS, Whole Foods.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the big stores, and Trader Joe's, yeah. Those are the big stores that will no longer be offering you the plastic, and if you take paper, they'll charge you the 10 cents. The smaller stores won't.
So can I ask, I was at the public hearing along with many of us, so are you feeling now with these changes that there's more support from small businesses in Darien?
I really hope so. I mean, I personally went out and visited 11 stores and talked to them about exactly this. And my biggest takeaway was that small stores don't want to charge the 10 cents. They can, okay? If they want to charge you 10 cents, they can. For the larger stores, the stores that use a lot of paper bags, a plastic bag, it costs about 1.2 cents. A non-compliant paper bag costs about 9 cents. A compliant paper bag can cost 15 cents, 20 cents, depends on which website that I was looking at. So this 10 cents for the larger that use a lot of the bags, it's a way for them to recapture part of the cost, which is one of the reasons that Palmer's is on board with this, because they're hoping to recoup some of the costs of the bags. Now remember, the goal of the ordinance is for people to bring their own bag. So theoretically, if it was 100% successful, think about it. Stores wouldn't have to pay, they wouldn't have to buy a bag for a penny, let alone 20 cents, because you would bring your own bags, so they wouldn't even need bags. Of course, that's not going to happen. But as time goes on, and the uptake is greater and greater, it'll benefit the stores. So I think this is a very good compromise, and that's why I'm here tonight, to answer any questions and to ask you to sincerely consider this compromise.
Just one more. Do you have a sense of what the Chamber of Commerce position is now with the changes?
No, I don't, because it's a relatively new development. But I can say with confidence that this is a better plan than what we had before.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Well, I think that, you look at some of the stores, I don't know if you really call it a store, but like the delis, the pizza shops, I always talk about Heights Pizza, that's my nearest and dearest. But you know, you go in there and they're gonna put your chicken parm wedge, you know, they're gonna wrap it, but then they're gonna put it in a small paper bag. And I don't think they have any thoughts of charging you 10 cents for that. So,
No.
you know, it's a small bag and I think that they just build that into their cost. And I'm just using them as an kind of hypothetical example, but I think all small stores kind of operate that way.
So the restaurants are the question I have too, because so often the takeout restaurants do a small paper bag, because they don't need a large one generally, and they put that into a plastic bag, the kind of bags we're thinking of getting rid of.
Okay, the plastic bags are gone.
Okay, read on it.
They're
For
gone.
restaurants?
Yeah, they're gone for everything.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the ordinance is based on size. So if you're 10,000 square feet or smaller, you don't have to charge for the bag, but you cannot offer the single-use plastic bag as of January 1st.
10,000 square feet or smaller, you don't have to charge for the paper bag.
Right. So that's the difference between this ordinance and what you have seen before from now.
But they'll be able to use the single-use bag until they get rid of them for an extra year.
For their, yes. For their-
Whatever they have.
Whatever they have.
And then a year from now, does it automatically take place that they will be charging 10 cents for a bag?
Okay, so the larger stores.
No, I understand
The
that.
smaller
I'm saying the
stores?
smaller stores,
No.
because you said they have a year, and then,
Okay, they have a year to become compliant with their stock. And that means that a year from January 1st, they will not be able to offer a paper bag that's not recyclable and made from post 40% da-da-da. They will not be able to offer you any sort of a single-use plastic bag. And if they offer you a plastic bag, it'll have to be 12 mil. The only difference is that they don't have to charge you the 10 cents. Okay, keep asking the questions because it is complicated.
Yeah.
Early on, that 10 cents or 25 cents, 50 cents, ever going to charge, the horrible word tax came along with it. And that word is still out there. Are we beyond that at this particular point? Or is someone going to go up and say, that 10 cents is still a tax, and then we're going to have to confront that?
No, what our town council has said is, and I'm not sure, was it in the paper? Is it in the paper? He has said that he has serious reservations about this, and it's not that it's not that the wording is illegal, it's that it could be challenged.
But
Go ahead.
There was a very good article in the online version of Darien Times,
So that's what it was on the online edition.
And-
Yeah.
I believe it will be in print.
Yeah.
They normally will just roll it over because they put a lot of work into the article. And to your question, Gary, they interviewed Wayne, and he said this.
they say he said that.
Yeah, public policy issue such as this one, it's not his job to give his opinion one way or the other. It's up to our board and legislative body to make the determination. He added that his job instead is to review a proposed ordinance, express an opinion on whether or not it's in legal order, and convey to his client, Town of Darien, whether or not there's any legal concerns that he should bring to their attention. I do have a concern, which I have an obligation to convey, as to the potential challenge that could be posed to such an ordinance if passed as it's proposed. Under the law, the fact that this is my opinion as to a potential problem doesn't mean that they have to vote it down. It's up to the RTM to decide what they want to do. So he had been misquoted by various people saying he was against it, or that it was illegal. And I think that the newspaper reporter did a good job of interviewing him to get his position fairly put out. So I repeat, the fact that it's my opinion as to a potential problem doesn't mean that they have to vote it down. It's up to the RTM to decide what they want to do.
So in other words, it could be, we voted in, and it could be back on our face, so the court could see a challenge to, at least, I'll call it the taxing aspect of this ordinance, right?
That's what Wayne is saying. And he's saying it is possible
Somebody has to
that
do
in the
Oh, yeah,
future,
no, I'm just trying to.
there's
weigh all the options.
no prevailing law against it right now. And there've been no court cases there've been no challenges to it in the various communities that have.
That's what I was gonna ask too, because
Wayne
I
knows.
was gonna ask about who was the first one, I was gonna ask how Westport handled it.
Well, Wayne knows that in the
Yeah,
future,
charge.
it's possible that there could be a challenge. And because there's no case law on this, it could be rule of tax or it couldn't be. He feels obligated to let that people know.
Yeah, okay.
Well, it seems to come back to the question we were asking last month or last week when we talked about this. Why are we requiring them to charge 10 cents a bag?
That's a good question. And the answer is that the larger stores, it's much more expensive to make a paper bag. And this is a way, one way to look at it is a way for them to recoup some of that cost.
But we're requiring them to, as opposed to, well, before I think there was the option.
That's right. Well, there are some stores, such as Palmer's, that would be inclined to impose the charge to recoup some of the cost. But there are other stores like Whole Foods that might choose to eat the cost. And so some people could say that this levels the playing field for all of those stores.
In the beginning, when we heard about the 10 cents, we were told that it was also an incentive to bring your own bag.
Right.
So that you aren't charged the 10 cents for the paper bag. So it was kind of an educational and a kind of a repercussion. If you didn't bring a bag, you would have to pay 10 cents. And they say that that has been successful in other towns.
It really does. It has a dramatic impact on the
Behavior.
the success rate. I'm not for big government myself, but it has shown to work. So it's kind of two things. It's, like Olive said, it's an incentive for the customer, and it's also a way for the store to recuperate some of the costs.
The other thing about the paper bags is that you get more plastic bags on a truckload of bags than paper bags. Paper bags also weigh more in a truckload than the plastic bags. So it's just going to be less bags for more money. So that's one of the problems. If they can't charge, that's up to them, but if they can't charge, then they do lose out on some of the money they've spent to get the paper bags because they're not allowed to have plastic bags.
But if you make it an option to charge, you're not saying they can't charge.
Right, I totally agree. Yeah, absolutely.
They don't want to have that argument with the customers, though.
Right.
Commerce doesn't want to be in the spot of King
Right.
charging and Whole Foods not charging.
It does level the playing
Just,
field.
and it's not a money issue, it's a,
It's an incentive, the whole thing is an incentive. It's not a punishment, it's not a, whatever, it's an incentive to.
Is that the point of the ordinance, to make it a level playing field and to change?
no, it's to change
Behavior.
behavior, though. Changing behaviors.
So the point of the ordinance is to change behavior?
That's what I think it
Well,
is. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I thought it was get rid of plastic.
Purpose of
Well, no,
change.
right,
And all of a
but
sudden it
in
became
addition to
paper,
that,
And then it
yeah.
became changing behavior.
Well, no,
See,
No,
I
it's
Supposed to
changing
move.
behavior right from the beginning, inclusive of getting rid of the plastic and that changing the behavior to bring your own, the incentive not to give paper for free. So it was never just the single-use bags. It was always education, it was always incentive to bring your own bag. It's bring your own bag is what they want. I mean, when the stores, if people bring their own bags, the stores won't even be buying a lot of bags.
Right.
Because people will bring them, so they'll have an incentive to encourage people to bring their own bags.
but the incentive is brought on by
Originally by the
environmental-
town, right.
the environmental
Right.
degradation of plastic bags everywhere.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question along the lines, there was, at some point I saw something about sales tax and whether this 10 cents gets added into the sales tax on things. You know, is that, I mean, it's not significant, I don't
Yeah,
think,
so,
but-
okay, so there's two taxable events that this could pertain to. So you know how Darien has the 2 weeks in the summer where you can buy things and there's no tax? Okay, so one question was, could this 10 cents trigger a taxable event? So it's $100. So let's say that you buy something and it's $99.99, and so you don't pay tax, right? Because it's under $100. But now you have the 10 cents, so now it's $100.09. So does that trigger? No, it doesn't. It will never trigger that because that's always on the per item. So unless your item is over $100, the tax it's what the item is. It's now, if you spend $1,000 and every item is $100, you buy 10 things, you're not gonna have a tax, right? But if you spend $1,000 and one item was $1,000, you're gonna pay the state tax, you're gonna pay the tax during that 2 weeks. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, irregardless, so if 10 things fit in one bag, or if one thing fits in one bag, it's gonna be 10 cents.
Right, but
They're still gonna pay that 10 cents.
that's never going to affect your threshold.
Right, no, it's not gonna affect your
Right.
taxes.
So now, another question was, let's say that you, you know, your kids were home from college and you spent $100 on paper bags because you bought, you know, $1,000 or whatever, you just used a ton of paper bags. Would you then, now you have $100 on your receipt for paper bags, are you gonna be charged at 6 cents on that? I don't know. I don't have that answer yet.
Again,
I'm sorry.
that's not reasonable to think it's gonna happen, really.
Right. It will be inconsequential, but I will have that answer by the time the ordinance comes before the RTM.
Okay, so in the Helen Ainson store,
Mhm.
let's just say, or any store, you know, clothing store like that, they have a bag, as far as I can remember, that is plastic, but it could probably hold 40 pounds of books, say.
It's a 4-ply.
Yeah, so that
Or 4
is,
mil.
that they can have those, they're not restricted.
They are.
they're not-
They are restricted. They can use those for the next year and a half. They can use those until 2021.
But
Or 2020.
What's the mill on them?
4.
4.
And this ordinance, the mill is 12. But I will say to that particular establishment, they needed to place an order, and so they have in the past used all plastic. They needed to place an order for the larger bags, and they placed an order for compliant bags, just in case, because they buy for a couple of years. So the smaller bags, she'll, after a year and a half, she'll have to go to paper.
Otherwise, she'll be
Yeah.
not in compliance.
She won't be in compliance. But the only difference between this and what you've seen before is before she would have, when you went into the store, she would have to charge you that 10 cents for the bag. And now she doesn't have to do that. She could.
How the ordinance has been changed.
Oh, in the toy store, because that was his issue,
The
so
toy
he doesn't
stores,
have to
yeah.
charge you.
And the toy store, that was a store that I visited, and he does a really nice thing. So right now, he has been for the last few years collecting, he has a little sign, do you need a bag, and if you don't, I'll donate 10 cents. And he gave away like $400 last year. So people that don't need the bag don't take the bag. But there are a lot of people that, you know, a lot of grandparents that go in there and they want a bag for the gift, and you know, that's understandable. And he didn't want to have to charge, you know.
So if he has a gift bag that he puts a toy in, the customer should pay 10 cents for that bag.
No,
That's not a gift bag, it's just his regular bag.
he will
Right.
not have to charge for that bag.
Right, he will not have.
It'll have to be compliant. It'll have to meet the recyclable content category, but he won't have to charge. So
Because
the-
he's a small store, not a big store.
Yeah, so the smaller stores don't have to charge the 10 cents.
So Monica, when we're all done, are you gonna go around to these stores and explain to them where we ended up?
You know, that is so BYO asked me how they could help, and I said, you know, you have done a fantastic job educating people. They've reached out to lots of different groups and really gotten the ball started. But my takeaway from going and talking to stores is the education component is definitely the next step, and I'm hoping that that there will be people from that organization that will want to help out in that regard.
Good.
We will, as a town, obviously do our part to communicate this because it is an ordinance. But every little bit helps. Feet on the ground, good thing.
Frank, I have a question for you. Do you know if there are any other ordinances in town that offer an incentive to change behavior in order to get people to comply with the ordinance? Like dog tags or shoveling the snow on your sidewalks or...
You give me a very good example. He said, the ordinance that gives you a fine for not shoveling your sidewalk, yes, that's an incentive to change your behavior. I can think also the ordinance that some of us were involved with was the blight ordinance 2 years ago. People were letting the houses run down for various reasons. And so the ordinance that came in changed their behavior. Now, I can't think of a lot of other ones, though.
Monica, do you, anyway, go
I
ahead.
have a totally different topic.
Good.
Well, it's this document, okay? No, but it's on section 12, it talks about annual report. It says the environmental compliance officer shall submit an annual report of the Board of Selectmen as of January 1 of each year with respect to the preceding calendar year. Could we put some time frame in there on when that report's going to happen? And I first read it says they're going to give us the report, the selectmen report as of January 1. And that doesn't make sense, because if the books close on December 31st, there's no way they're going to have everything figured out overnight. So I then interpreted it that was the sort of the end of the period. But the question then, which left me with the question of, so when do they have to deliver it? Because I think we've run into this, well, somebody's supposed to deliver some report by some point, and we wanted to see the results. And there was nothing in here that said when.
How about by January 31st?
It's fine. Or, in the first quarter. I don't, whatever you guys want, but I thought someday we would have to.
But it says shall submit as of January 1st.
Well, if the calendar year is over December 31st, they're not going to really be able to turn, and it's supposed to cover the full year, they're not going to be able to turn around January 1st.
Okay.
So I wasn't sure what the January
Well, it
1st
shouldn't be
was
too
referring
hard
to.
because I mean, those are all things that are keeping track of all year. It's not like,
Yeah, but
Might
it's
be-
not, they're not going to have it done by January 1st. So if
Okay.
that January 1st was meant to be the date they were going to deliver it, then I
Well,
would
like
say.
Frank
I think we're splitting hairs. If Frank says make it the 31st, I don't
That's
think
fine.
we're having an earth-shattering
Yeah.
difference if we give that person a little leeway or make it the 15th or whatever. the
Yeah,
case
I
may
don't
be.
care. I'm just
I
saying.
just
Okay.
think,
Excellent point.
I think we'll probably maybe just put a preface here by January 31st
Perfect,
of each year,
yeah.
the environmental will be.
Well, you may
Makes
just
sense.
change, well, okay, that's fine.
We now have version 2.5.
what you might want to talk about, Monica, too, is just the timing going forward, where we are, the next few weeks, the next month.
Okay, so the three committees have been meeting, you've all been meeting, and we all appreciate it. Our committee meets on Thursday, and we'll be looking at this version, maybe the 2.5, I don't know. And then there's a public hearing next week, next Wednesday, and it'll follow the exact same format as the last hearing. People will be invited to speak, they'll have 3 minutes, and they'll be able to...
And they'll have an ordinance.
Yes, we'll have the
to refer
ordinance
to.
posted on the website, on the Darien website, and we'll have ordinances at that evening to hand out. And then we'll have a sheet that will hopefully, kind of a cheat sheet to give you like the highlights. So you can look through all this, and it's actually not that
Executive
long.
summary.
An executive summary, yes, good, yeah, I like that word. So we'll have that. So that will be on I think it's the 27th. Okay, so that's the public hearing. And then we will incorporate any of those comments, and we will finalize the ordinance. We will then send it over to town council, who will take a look at it. And then we'll send it to the rules committee. And then it could possibly be in front of the RTM on the next RTM meeting, which is April 22nd. It's a little tight, so.
If we miss April 22nd, the next one is the budget meeting.
Right, so it won't be the budget, so the next.
That'll be
Yeah,
June.
so it'll either be April 22nd or June, I don't remember what the date is in June.
because it is going to be tight, because I think we were talking about this today too. Weren't we correct that rules is meeting on the 1st?
Yes, it meets April 1st.
And if we're having a public hearing on the 27th, and your committee discusses it and refines it, and gets it to town council and back in, well, that's a lot of movement in a couple of days,
Yeah.
Monica.
I
Yeah,
don't know that we need the final.
No, I mean, we
Rules
could,
committee.
no, we could take something and we could assume that it'll be ready
Yeah.
for prime time, but I'm just saying, just by the very basics of it, we're
right,
working in a finite time period.
right, but you know what, there have been these variables, I've called them, and we've discussed them pretty thoroughly, all three committees, so I'm not, I'm sure we'll learn something, you always learn something at public hearings, but I'm hopeful that we'll be able to incorporate those comments without
No, I'm not discouraging, I'm just telling you, you're aware, and I'm
It is
just
tight.
emphasizing that it's tight, that's all.
It is tight.
Yeah.
But we thought we would try, right? Because otherwise, it goes on until June, and, you know.
You have
people-
momentum and you don't.
Right,
Yeah.
we'd like to just, yeah.
And what, there were discussions, how do we get to the 12 mil as opposed to some of the other numbers?
The 12 mil is an interesting number. There are 24 other states in the country that have an ordinance, and there is only one state that goes above a 4, and that's Connecticut. We have between, Westport has a 2 1/4 mil, you know, that's the thickness of the bag. Weston has a 4, Stanford has a 12, Greenwich has a 12. Greenwich does not have a charge, though. The 12 mil is, it is a big number. It is a more expensive bag to make. The thinking is that it will last longer. I know that you've seen the bags that Stop and Shop. That bag is a 3 mil, okay? And that bag is pretty thin. And what tends to
Just to be
happen.
clear, that's the bag that they sell for 10 cents?
Yeah.
It's not the one we're getting rid of, it's their
And
backup
but
bag.
they do have on it that you can use it 125 times. It
Right.
just doesn't have all the official.
Yeah. I personally am not sure. It could make 125
I
times.
don't think it can.
But it's also, because it's so thin, it's inexpensive to make. And because it's inexpensive to make, it turns into a disposable bag. And so it becomes, by default, a single-use bag. And so there's the incentive to make a thicker bag.
I see.
12 is very thick. 12 is very thick. But the reality is that stores, those bags are, once you get above like a 6, those bags are pretty expensive, and your default is going to be to the paper, to the compliant paper. That will be what happens. But that's how, does that
And so
answer?
will the store sell the bags that
Yes,
are 12?
yes, you could buy a 12 mil bag.
Do they have them now or is it?
I haven't seen them. I've only seen one that I know is bona fide. These bags don't have the markings on them, and it's hard to, even when I did my own research, a 12 mil bag is so strong that it holds a greater quantity. And so thus, it rarely comes in that smaller size because you don't need that thick of a bag. So the bag that I have, for instance, is a bag that you would carry. It's a bag that a book company that,
Right, exactly.
it's like Scholastic Books, like a real book company, sells to carry, like 10 books in the bag. But when I was doing my own research to find that bag, those are, kind of contractor-sized bags. And because they're so strong, they're made to carry a greater quantity of material. But I'm sure they'll find them.
Would the organization, start selling the bags, just like for the recycling
Right,
things that
so,
have
yeah.
happened? So that maybe somebody could
So,
take this on?
okay, so there's that 12 mil bag, but remember, there's also canvas bag, there's anything that reusable bag that it has a sewn handle. So for instance, I went to Johnny's and started thinking, why am I in Johnny's? Because they probably don't use a lot of bags. But I was there, so I stopped in to chat, and they have their own canvas bag. So they're selling it. It's like, I think it's $3.99 or $4.99 or something, and it has their logo and, their information. So I think that's what you'll probably see is instead of this 12 mil heavy-duty plastic bag, stores will probably be more inclined to go with this canvas bag, which is, more cost-effective, I think.
So the somewhat plastic bags that Stop and Shop sells now, that not the 10-cent ones, but the 99-cent ones, or the ones that you might buy at Trader Joe's, they feel plastic, kind of like maybe a cloth plastic or something. Those are compliant.
If they're 12 mil.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
I think
and
that
they'd have to look it up.
there's
So for
some, yeah,
instance,
there's some assumptions that
Yeah.
they're okay.
So for instance, I went into this store and I said, what do you think of the bag ban? And they said, we're fine, corporate's all on board, we saw this coming. And I said, how thick is your bag? and they got back to me, they told me this is 2 1/4.
Oh, that doesn't look like
I am not, I personally am pretty well versed in bags right now, and I think this is a little stronger than 2 1/4, but I could be wrong. But what they do with these bags now is they reinforce them with string, so it's kind of hard to tell. But this store,
Is it marked underneath at all?
no, I can't find anything. But, so a store like this won't be able to offer this bag. Now, I have been in other stores, for instance, in Newport, they have this store also, and they have
Pass
a
it
bag
around.
band, and they use paper bags. So that probably is what will happen.
And the thing of it is no matter what bag you bring into the store, you can use it.
Yeah.
It's your bag. So if you, like me, have, 30 of the bags that are from Trader Joe's or someplace
Right.
else, you still be able to use
You
those.
can bring your Stop and Shop plastic bag.
You're right.
As long as it lasts.
Right.
And if I go to Dairy and Sport Shop, am I supposed to bring my own bags with me?
Okay, Dairy and Sport Shop, no. They use about 300 bags a day. The bags cost them about $1 a bag. They are not in favor of this 10 cents charge. And that is the only store that it's a little tricky because they're not in favor of it. They are an integral part of our town, as all of these stores are. But yes, they will have to charge you the 10 cents.
They don't want to charge the 10 cents because?
Because it's not in line with their service ethic. They don't charge for wrapping, they don't charge for delivery, they don't charge for alterations. And so charging you the 10 cents for the bag is not in line with the service that they provide.
So they don't have to.
However, they are green oriented.
But the ordinance, you said, requires them
It will
to
require
charge.
them.
Because they're bigger than 10,000.
So how are they not gonna charge me?
They will have to charge.
They will have to charge,
They will have to
or
charge.
I have to bring my own bags.
Or you can bring your own.
That's the incentive. That's where the hitch is. Right.
Has anybody brought up any concerns about shoplifting or anything like that, by the way?
Why?
Well,
Bring your own bag.
But you walk into Brooks Brothers and you're carrying
Can I
the
share?
bag.
Now you can shake your heads, but I mean,
Well,
I think
and
that's
not
a valid
everybody's
point.
perhaps is
That's
ethical.
a
Let me share this. I went to, this is true, when you're talking about putting your bags, I did this today. I went up to Trader Joe's and I had to pick up a couple things. And I wasn't gonna get a cart, so I brought one of those Trader Joe's bags with me. So I'm going around with the bag, I'm going, oh, I need milk, put milk into the bag. I went around, I got some bread, put bread to the bag. I got some fresh fruit, put into the bag. I'm putting this in the bag, and I'm carrying some iced tea. So I go up to the guy in front, I said, everything's in the bag, so you can just take it out and put it right back in again. I got home, my wife said, someone follow you around? No one followed me around.
Right.
I just took it in the bag, I used it, and I put it on to check out, and they didn't bother me. I didn't get near the door, they didn't care.
A lot of stores, though, they'll ask you to not put it in the bag.
Yeah,
They'll be
I'm sure, but
honest.
Trader Joe's didn't make any difference to me
Only
today.
honest people shop there.
I gotta take you home, my wife can hear that.
Just not to rehash old stories, but when we first did this in 2012, the sole purpose of the ban was to stop the use of this t-shirt, very thin plastic bags that blow in the trees, in the water, on the highway. And now it's gotten to the point where that's the least of anybody's problems. It's gotten into 12 mil bags.
But I don't
Why,
agree with
though?
that. I don't think it's the least. I think it's the primary concern, the single-use bags.
Exactly.
But I think
Well,
this
sure,
minutia
but-
that we're talking about is because of questions that are raised. So you have to talk about how big is that plastic bag going to be that's acceptable? How is that paper bag going to be acceptable? And how are we going to continue to incentivize people to bring their own bags?
That's
So,
exactly-
but I don't see as the t-shirt bag being second to anything. It's still the primary reason for this ordinance.
12 mil.
Well, I think also,
I think it gets down to that. When people start asking questions, you have to define it.
Nina, I think also since the last time to now, this has gone all over the country, and I think everyone's realized it, so they're getting into the details of what's happened in other states. So
Yeah, but if you make a bag out of that much plastic, aren't you kind of defeating the purpose of using plastic and having plastic. It will be reusable, for sure, but.
That's the issue. It's reusable, it doesn't fall apart. You're not gonna throw
Right,
it
but it's
away.
still using
The
a lot of
10
plastic, with plastic
The
uses
10
oil
cent
from the
bag,
ground.
the 10 cent bag at Stop and Shop, it's not gonna be used more than once or twice. It just isn't. It's very flimsy, so that's why it has to be a higher gauge than that one for sure.
Right, it has to be a higher gauge, but there's a big jump between 4 and 12.
Oh, yeah.
There is a big jump.
Yeah.
But it seems to me, to Nina's point, that the first time the town tried to do this, it was to stop using plastic bags. It seems that the purpose of this ordinance has expanded on that. This isn't really not only about plastic
Well,
bags.
it's not. It's-
And I think that's the problem with this. That's where people have a problem with it.
So then we would it be a preference to say no plastic bags at all, including 12 gauge? I mean, I guess when we started discussing this, we said there are gonna be compromises all over the place, except for that single-use bag. That was not gonna be a compromise. But otherwise, there would be compromises, and
Yeah, I love compromises.
again,
Surprised we got to both.
it's an ordinance, it can be changed.
Well, that was one of the things we talked about last time, right, was taking it in stages. So the primary issue to a lot of people was those small plastic bags or
T-shirt
whatever.
bags.
That make up the vast majority of this plastic.
Right.
And so if we just went after that, that itself would solve a fair amount of the problem, I would think.
Right, exactly.
And then we could start working on, the next one, if you will, the paper or the mill rates or the behavior changes or whatever. It seems to me that plastic T-shirt bag thing would be pretty simple, that people can really grasp and understand and get behind, Or at least they know what they're voting against,
Right.
And to the topic of the 10 cent charge being a problem, I should point out that when we had the public hearing a couple of weeks ago, approximately 65 people talked. Approximately 5 were against the ban, and it was from the Merchants Chamber of Commerce. The balance, 60 people, were speaking in favor of banning the plastic bag, but nobody addressed the other topic that we are all concerned about. But we think we're speaking for the public that they're against it.
We don't know that.
But in fact, they haven't spoken out on the topic yet. So we're very happy that the Darien Times has put articles in the paper to make sure that people are aware of it. The purpose of the second hearing next Wednesday is to continue that public education and give the public a chance to talk not only about banning the plastic, but by the other leg of this. So we'll be listening very carefully to that hearing, because up to this point, the public hasn't talked to it, other than banning plastic.
Could be because we call it the plastic bag ban. We don't call it the plastic bag ban, 10 cent paper bag charge.
12 mil.
The title of the ordinance, nobody reads the title of the ordinance either, but the ordinance for the management of plastic and paper checkout bags. So we're very careful to make sure that the ordinance
I know
was not
you
that way.
are very specific.
Well, we're trying to avoid a problem at the end game. And as everybody says, we're preparing a document for consideration by the RTM. And if at the RTM meeting somebody says, "Oh, I'm going to vote against it," that's what it's all about. They can. But with public education, they might not, and by meetings like this, anyway.
So ostensibly, if you,
We are, if anybody's listening, trying to make sure the public knows that the ordinance has both legs.
if you go into a store and you purchase for 10 cents a 12 mil bag,
No.
No, you're never they're gonna charge you more than that. That bag
They
will
are,
cost you,
okay.
that bag will cost you $1, $2, $3. Right.
10 cents is for a paper bag.
10 cents
10
is
cents
a
for
paper
paper.
bag charge.
all right.
And that bag costs anywhere from 14 to 25 cents a piece,
Right.
depending on where you buy it.
And the smaller stores don't have to charge the 10
And smaller
cents.
stores don't have to charge.
The 10 cents.
They don't have to charge you 10 cents.
Yeah, when we talk about education, Stop and Shop has that 10-cent bag. It kind of makes you think they were thinking about it, 125 uses, it says. But they also display a nylon bag that costs $3.69 that you can tuck into another little pouch and put it in your purse or your car or whatever. So, I mean, that's different. They've never had that before. So it is already, without even being an ordinance, making some changes in some places.
I mean, the reality is, all of us can bring our own bags
Yes.
into the
Yes.
store, right?
Exactly.
But as RTM members, I really encourage you to talk to your friends and your neighbors, and when you go into businesses, I think we talked to 14 businesses, so trust me, if you hit them again, that'll be okay. Because I don't know the names off the top of my head. But ask them what they think. But ask your constituents too what they think, because it comes down to everyone's vote at, on April 22nd or very possibly June.
But the thing is, now we can do that because we
Yeah.
know what our position is. Before that, we weren't sure whether it was going to be 0.2, 0.12, and whether,
Yeah.
So now we can really do that because this is what it is.
Yeah.
And if people have any concerns.
And if everybody comes back and says 12 is crazy,
We can amend that in
then
that.
we'll take another look. We're listening to the public. We're listening to other RTM members and to the public.
I think the point is just making the bag with the greatest mill, because then if we don't, we're gonna just use it the same way we use the t-shirt bag, because we're creatures of
Even if you're 10
habit.
cents.
Yeah, so that's what's gonna happen. So if you make it so it's not gonna be thrown out more than one single use, then you just you pause for a minute, and then you're like, okay, I'm not gonna throw it out, I'm gonna use it.
Sure.
Why would I throw this nice bag out?
Sure.
So I think that's sort of the point.
Yeah, that's the point.
That otherwise, we would just, if it was just a one step up from the t-shirt bag, we would be talking about this 10 years from now.
But it could be, like Weston has a 4 mil.
Right,
So, it doesn't have to be.
right, it doesn't have to be 12, but something enough where someone could sort of stop and think like, oh, I'm gonna keep this, or reuse it.
Sure,
Yeah.
I've got tons of them. Think of all
Yeah.
the Christmas bags that you probably have in your attic, like I do, stuff going inside the other. To
Fire
reuse
trap.
again. Oh, yeah. Blight.
Hoarded.
Fortunately, it's not two sides of our house, it's one. It's only the outside.
Given time, given time.
Yeah, I mean, so I could take one of those if I wanted to into a store and
You take
put my
anything.
goodies in, right. So
You
if
can
you
take
go into a store and get a 12 mil and
can
you
take a
don't have a
basket.
bag, right?
You can take a basket.
If I don't have a bag, bring a bag.
Pillowcase.
Oh, yes, that's December.
I think what would be helpful for both Frank and Monica is if we would do a couple votes tonight.
Let them know.
Well, no, I mean, we can keep talking, but the first vote would be, are we comfortable with this version of the ordinance? Up or down, and that would be helpful to you. And then I think also just get a sense of how we would vote tonight if we were voting on the ordinance, if we were in front of the RTM. That would give you a sense of that also. Because you don't necessarily have, you may like the ordinance, the way it's written, this is good, it's the best we can do, but I'm not voting for it when I get to the, or you are going to vote for it. But I think it'd be good to have both of those two votes for you.
We have the same type of situation in TGS&A. We had one vote, just as you said, about is this a proper document to bring to the RTM? We would work on it and got input from various people, but is it okay now? Then that second vote was how people felt about the ordinance. And we emphasized that they could abstain, because at this point, if the people are still canvassing the neighbors, canvassing the merchants, there's no reason that they have to declare themselves now whether they're for or against it, and an abstent is entirely acceptable.
Yeah.
On that second vote.
So what do you think? What else can we talk about? Have we talked it out?
So if you
Yeah.
go into a store and you don't have a bag and you purchase for $3 their plastic 12 mil bag, you can either look at it and say, oh my God, I just bought this stupid bag because I was too dumb to remember to bring my own.
Yep.
Or, look at this nice bag I just got for just $3.
Yeah.
Or how about just throw it in your car? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
we're not in Manhattan, right? So we're
Yeah.
not walking from
Right.
one thing to, you just, if I forget a bag, just throw it in the car.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, I mean.
Or you could buy
Sure.
pay the 10 cents for the
For the
paper.
paper bag.
Or we can use the bag to bring goodies to Gary when he's been arrested for,
I just was spreading cheer at Trader Joe's today, and you guys.
Keeping them on your toes.
They were,
Testing them, huh?
and they passed. And that was good.
So you could say that the expense, the high cost of that reusable bag that you would have to buy if you forgot your own and you didn't want paper, is an incentive to bring your own.
Yeah.
Really, that's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because it'll be
Yes,
your
and
own.
it's like, and it's like,
Holly.
it's like Holly said, the thicker the bag, you're amortizing over more uses. You could look at it that way.
Right.
Okay. I keep all my nice bags
I do too.
all the time, and I reuse them, or then, when you go to donate, you give them with it, so, I mean,
I've got
it's.
tons in my car, on my
But I
doorknobs
am
at
a
home.
culprit of throwing away the other ones. I just, I don't need that many bags, so I'm just like,
Or
whatever.
bring them to,
Person to
person,
Yeah.
But they're stopping, they're not gonna use them either, so.
But
I mean,
they can
this-
accept them though, to
Yeah.
give
Yeah, to
out,
give
yeah,
out,
yeah.
This really, another big driver for this was because we don't recycle those bags anymore.
That's the big change.
Yeah, that's a big change, and they're considered contamination. So when you think you're doing the right thing and you're putting your stuff in your recycle bin, including these plastic bags, you're actually creating a pretty big problem. Now, it's not as big as some places it really gums up the machine. But our transfer station is in Stamford, and we use city carting, and they have a giant vacuum that vacuums, that picks them up. But even if they do get into the machine, they retrofitted the machine, they spent like $100,000. And so our machine runs like 22 hours a day, and we do not have that problem. But those bags are taken out, and they're put in this spot, and then they're hauled off to Bridgeport where they're burned. And we pay $93.50 a ton for our solid waste garbage, and that is considered the solid waste garbage. So it's another reason, if you're fiscally oriented, that's another reason to,
How are the paper bags treated then along those lines?
the paper bags are, the ones that will be in this ordinance will be recyclable, and they'll be from recyclable material. And that's actually becoming a new hot button. I just read an article today about aluminum this was in the Wall Street Journal, about aluminum cans and how they're not recycling, they're stockpiling because they're not recycling. Again, China, because we're not sending this stuff to China. And, it has some other implications too, but anyhow, the paper bags are, the bags that will be in this will be recyclable, and they'll be made from post-consumer recyclable material, which actually is a pretty important
And
part.
Stanford is now actually making money on cardboard boxes, because we're all receiving things from Amazon, but that's one thing that they can sell and make money on, is cardboard.
I want to thank you both for the incredible job that you've all done.
Yes.
You put so much work
Thank you.
into it. And taking it from that nebulous presentation we had like in September to this document is just amazing. So thank you.
Here, here.
A
Yep.
lot of research,
Yep.
a lot of.
And thank you to your committees too,
Yeah.
what you guys have done.
Thank you. We'll pass that on.
Well, why don't we do our voting? All in favor of presenting this ordinance to move it along? Are we in favor of that? Okay, looks like that's unanimous. And then the next step is if this were to be on the floor of the RTM tonight, would you be supportive of it, representing your district to vote for it? Is that the best way of saying it?
Yes.
So against?
And for those of you who are against, why are you against? So we
Abstain.
make sure.
Yeah, maybe I'll abstain.
Abstaining?
Yeah,
Okay,
abstain.
thank you.
It's just, the 12 mil thing gets me. I just wish it could be simpler.
Well, Nina, the 12 mil, trust me, I happen to agree with you on this, but I came to the conclusion that this is a compromise. This project is a compromise, and the reality is that those bags aren't going to be the bags that stores will end up providing.
Okay.
They'll end up providing the compliant paper bag, right? Or you'll end up bringing your own bag
Right,
in.
exactly.
And if you are inclined to purchase the 12 mil bag because it'll last longer. But the stores don't have to sell a 12 mil reusable bag. They could sell a canvas bag, a lot less money. And my own thinking is that is the way that they will go. That's what I'm thinking. I don't have any data to back that up, but that's my gut. So I totally agree with you though. The 12 was a major sticking point for me personally.
Last question, you keep talking about these paper bags that will be compliant. If you go to Stop and Shop right now, you get paper or plastic. Is that paper not compliant?
I believe it's not. I haven't looked at the composition.
It's not because it's not the recyclable
Right.
aspect
Do
of
they
it?
even have paper bags at Stop and Shop?
Yeah.
I never see anyone using them.
Exactly.
You're under the counter.
Really, yeah, because the plastic ones are out.
And will they have handles? I mean,
Yeah,
You know,
the paper,
the
recyclable ones.
they
That's
do right now, yeah.
No, I don't.
the paper bags. That's up to them. Like in Newport, they use I think that their uptake for their ordinance will be 95% because they offer you this very flimsy paper bag that has no handles. So either their sales are gonna just drop through the floor because you can't carry more than 2 bags, right? You don't have handles. Or people will remember to bring their own bags. So, but I believe Stop and Shop probably uses recyclable bags, but not made from the composition that'll be required in this.
40%. And what about Trader Joe's bags?
I think that I'm 99% sure that they're compliant right now, and Whole Foods is compliant right now.
Oh, okay.
But you know, for Whole Foods, for instance, I've noticed that they pretty much regularly now, they double bag. And, you know, that uses up a lot of paper bags, which with the 10 cents, I hate to say it, but,
20 cents each.
you know, 20 cents is, you know,
We'll be changing their behavior.
that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's
No
gonna
more
change
double
fast.
bag.
That would be paying for it.
So you all know so much more than you did, right, from the get-go, right? But you realize that how many questions you have that, you know, have sort of gotten stirred up. And that's what's happening to everybody in town. So if you have any questions and you want to reach out to us, that's great. But I really encourage you to talk to your peeps.
And compliments to this committee because you were the first to entertain the topic back
Yeah.
in October.
Yeah,
That's right.
Good for you.
you met with
It's
Drew.
been forever.
And never meeting ever since.
Well, that's why we know
10
how far
years.
it's come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, any other business or other announcements? Motion to adjourn?
So move.
Okay,
Thank you.
great, thank you.